Turn to page 651 because you have a blank page there. And we are going to do pi over 12 questions, which means on your unit circle, we can now add all the 15-degree pi over 12 families that are missing so that it was equally spaced out. And we can do these using our alpha and beta question, alpha and beta formula. So what it's going to look like, you're going to get a question that looks like this. Find the exact value of cos of pi over 12, and it's not going to be on the calculator section of your test. And right now, is pi over 12 on your pi plate? No. Is 75 degrees on your pi plate? No. So here is the strategy. We use the ones that we have on our pi plate, which is our pi over 3 family, our pi over 4 family, and our pi over 6 family. And we pick 2 of them that add or subtract to get the angle you want. And notice that with the pi over 6 and pi over 3 and pi over 4, I all made them common denominators of pi over 12, so you could see ways that you could get pi over 12. And we're not restricted to just the first quadrant. You can use any pi over 3 family member, any pi over 4 family member, any pi over 6 family member. And then you can find out any pi over 12 question. So if you're done writing this already, can you see 2 different ways you could subtract to get 1 pi over 12? You see that you could take 4 pi over 12 and subtract 3 pi over 12. That would give you pi over 12. Or you could take 3 pi over 12 and subtract 2 pi over 12. That would give you 1 pi over 12. So if you were asked to find cos of 1 pi over 12, our very first step would be to choose something that works. And I would say cos of pi over 12 equals cos of 4 pi over 12 minus 3 pi over 12, which is cos of pi over 3 minus pi over 4. And the pi over 3 is going to be our alpha, and the pi over 4 is going to be our beta. And we have one of our cos alpha minus beta formulas. So we expand it completely. And all 4 of those are on your pi plate, which luckily you get to use for the next test. But you have to have it memorized for your final exam again. So always try to see if you know the value first, but you can use your pi plate to check.
Wait, what do we have to memorize?
Your unit circle,
Oh, okay.
all the values, you have to have that memorized for the final exam.
Yeah.
But from now on, anytime you want to use it, you can use your official pi plate on your next test. Just so you can like try to do it in your head, like cos pi over 3, is that a half or root 3 over 2? It's a half. Cos pi over 4, root 2 over 2. Sine of pi over 3, root 3 over 2. Sine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. You need to write your answer as a single fraction. Can you see that you have a common denominator of 4? So just add the tops. And you get root 2 plus root 6 over 4. After you've done a bunch of these, you're going to notice the following pattern. sine of pi over 12 and cos of pi over 12, not tan, but sine of pi over 12, any pi over 12, cos of any pi over 12 will always have a root 2, a root 6, it will always be over 4. The thing that will change is sometimes the root 2 will be positive, sometimes negative. Sometimes the root 6 positive, sometimes negative. But you will always get those three numbers when you do sine and cos of any pi over 12. I'm going to get you to do sine of like 23 pi over 12. You're going to get those numbers, but positive and negatives are going to change. Next question, we said, can we find sine of 5 pi over 12? Which was, no, it was in degrees. It was in degrees. It was sine of 75, so we'll do it in degrees, but it's the same. If it was in radians, that would be a pi over 12 question because 75 degrees is 5 pi over 12. And we have to think of our unit circle, anything that makes 75. This is probably the easiest, 30 plus 45. Those are both on our unit circle. This becomes our alpha, this becomes our beta. And we expand it with the formula, sine alpha cos beta plus cos alpha sine beta. Get those values from your pi plate. And sure enough, we get a root 6, a root 2 over 4. They're all positive again. Handing out a piece of scrap paper for our next activity. Take one, pass it on. Take one and pass it on. We're using the scrap paper side. You don't have to. You can read the other side if you want. Our next question is going to be to find the exact value of cos of 17 pi over 12. But before we do that, the hardest part in these questions, in any pi over 12 question, is finding the two things that add to make 17 pi over 12. And you can only use things that are on your pi plates. So you can only use pi over 3 family member, pi over 4, pi over anything on your pi plate. You need two things to add up. What we're doing in the next activity is I'm first of all going to tell you there are an infinite amount of right answers, which is wonderful. There's also an infinite amount of wrong answers. Not so good. You can't just guess, and it's not 50-50. So, your challenge is to find two that add up. Once you find two that add up, you put your hand up, and if it's right, I add it onto the board, and nobody else is allowed to use that one. So you want to find it first, because that means everybody else who finds that one has to go like start over again. And everybody has to find one. Two things that add up that make 17 pi over 12. You can use any family members from your pi plate, even coterminal. You can go around 17 times if you want, and use 133 pi over 4 if you wanted to. Not recommended, but you could.
Can you use our pi plates?
You can use your pi plate to look at it for sure. You need to find two things that add to 17 pi over 12. We have 6 of them up here. Which means, I'm just looking at the class, we had more than 6 people in here. Some of you didn't do your job. Everybody needed to come up with them. Okay? But we are now going to look at a pattern, and I'm going to show you how you could come up with another one. There is, besides the fact, okay, I'm going to say there's something in common with all 6 of the answers, other than the fact that obviously they all make 17 pi over 12. But looking at the solutions, what is something in common with all 6 of them? And that's going to be our hint for our shortcut. What do we notice that all 6 of those have?
None are on the axis family.
None of them are on the axis family, for sure. You're always using pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 6. What else do you see? Something in common with all 6 of them.
I don't know if this is, but all of they're on the left side are all odd numbers.
They're all odd numbers on the left side. I like that pattern. But I could have written them flipped. So will one of them have to be odd? Most likely. Yes. What else do you see?
All of them required to have a pi over 4.
All of them are required to have a pi over 4. So if I take out my highlighter, do you see that this one has a pi over 4, this one has a pi over 4, this one had a pi over 4, this one has a pi over 4, and this one has a pi over 4, and this one has a pi over 4. Are there any pi over 4 families that we haven't talked about yet? Can you tell me a pi over 4 family that I haven't highlighted? And I'm going to start and make a new one. So pi over 4 is used, 3 pi over 4 is used, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, 9 pi over 4, and negative pi over 4. Can you tell me another pi over 4? On your pi plate coterminal.
Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Negative 3 pi over 4?
Negative 3 pi over 4. If I started with negative 3 pi over 4, would you agree that that's going to be negative 9 pi over 12? I would have to add what to get to 17? I'd have to add 9 to get to 0, right? And another 17 to get to 17. Does it make sense that I would have to add 26 pi over 12 to get to 17? What does 26 pi over 12 reduce to? You can divide them both by, is 2 the only thing you can divide by? So if I divide by 2, I get 13 pi over 6. Is that a pi plate value? Is it coterminal with something on your pi plate? Yes, it's part of your pi over 6 family. The shortcut for finding these is you can pick any pi over 4 family you want to start with, change it to pi over 12 and see what would work. Now, I wouldn't start with normally negative numbers make our life a little bit more difficult. But if I said, I want you to find sine of 23, oh, I can't write. 23 pi over 12. The first thing I would get you to do is pick some pi over 4 family. Some people like just pi over 4. Some people like to get close to 23. So they're like, well, 20 is a pretty big number already. Maybe I'll use 5 pi over 4. So I'm going to use 5 pi over 4, but before I do that, I change it to, what is it going to be over 12? 15. What do you have to add to 15 to make 23? 8. That's not hard. We just made our math a lot easier. What does 8 pi over 12 reduce to? Oh, it's on our pi plate. Perfect. So if we use any pi over 4, you just have to figure out what you need to add or subtract to make it work, and it will work every single time. You can make your life difficult and choose 101 pi over 4. And get very big numbers. I wouldn't recommend it, but it will work. And then this becomes your alpha, this becomes your beta. So for our question, we were on finding the exact value of cos of 17 pi over 12. We could choose any one of these 7 that we wrote down. They will all work. Which one did I pick? I picked 21 pi over 12 minus 4 pi over 12. Usually I like ones that are adding because you make less mistakes when you add, but I have a subtraction one here just to mix it up. So if you always start with a pi over 4 family, and here they are, 3, 9, 15, and 21. Most likely I would have started with the 15. I like to get as close to it as I can, but still underneath it so I can add because I like adding better than subtracting. Then the 7 pi over 4 is my alpha, the pi over 3 is my beta. And I write out my formula. Cos alpha, cos beta plus sine alpha, sine beta. All of those values are now on your pi plate. Root 2 over 2, 1/2. Negative root 2 over 2, because it's in quadrant 4 here, we gotta be careful with the negative sign. And root 3 over 2. So when we simplify, we get our root 2, we get our root 6, we get our 4, but this time the root 6 is negative. And sometimes as a part B to these questions, they ask you, what is secant of 17 pi over 12? Well, if you figured out cos of 17 pi over 12, well, secant of 17 pi over 12, all you have to do is flip the answer. If you got this question and you totally forgot on the exam how to do the pi over 12 question, first of all, you'll have to apologize to me because I'll be very mad at you, but that's okay. Okay. You totally forgot. Well, then make up something. Cos of 17 pi over 12 is root 6 over 3. Totally wrong. You lose all those marks. But if you flip your answer in part B, you will get full marks for whatever you flipped. As long as you take the answer that you got wrong and flip it, you will get the answer for part B. Because to find secant is just finding cos first and then flipping it. They used to, on the exam, sometimes just ask secant of 17 pi over 12. Then you would have to find cos of 17 pi over 12 first and flip it at the end. Question?
Can't you just like make up a random assortment and be like, I think that cos of 7 pi over 12 is negative root 2 plus root 6 over 4, and wouldn't that be like, you just got the negatives wrong, so technically you just like...
No, they would give you no marks for, you have none of the work. So in this question, the way that they would assign the marks, they would assign a half mark for figuring out, sometimes they give a full mark for figuring out what you need. Then they give you a full mark for each of these. No mark for your final answer unless you've made an arithmetic error, they take off a half. So if you just wrote the answer, the marking guide would say, well, there's no answer. There's no mark for the final answer. The marks are all in the work, and you would get nothing. But if you then flipped your answer in part B, you would get full marks for that. So I've got one for you to practice. You can, on your own, you can circle question number 7. And then this was an exam question where they put an extra 4 out in front. So you can write this one down. I'll show you the answer tomorrow so you can see if you got it right. What do you do with that extra 4 out in front? Can you problem solve and still be able to do?